Good afternoon. This is the Lion's Den, where we are restoring kings and queens one conversation at a time. I'd like to ask you, in your lifetime, who were the men that spoke to you?
There was a myriad of men that spoke to me, formally and informally. I didn't have my biological father in my life. I did have a stepfather, gratefully, and certainly he spoke to me, and an army man and a very gregarious spirit, um, you know, um, very popular and uh, loved life. And, you know, he grounded me as a boy looking to be a man, so that meant wrestling, that meant boxing, that meant, punching in my chest, kicking me in my ass, and that built a character in me. As it turned out, as quiet as I was and as seemingly meek as I was, I had a lot of run-ins. I had to be able to take care of myself, and he provided me with the things I needed to be able to do that. And so that was a very, on spot, kind of thing in my immediate circle. My father, as a caretaker and authority figure. But beyond that, there were people that I looked at and that inspired me, and I have to mention, as a 10th grader in social studies, I mean, granted social studies, and you have achieved certainly enough to be a teacher, but I got to give my flowers to Mr. Hobby. He's probably long gone by now, but this is a bald-headed white man, and very easygoing, but so knowledgeable. And we would often get off subject. We would often get off subject, and but whatever it was, he could talk 2 to 5 minutes about it, and that really, really inspired me, intrigued me. Like, wow, I want to be like that. I want to be like that, you know. And then, the subtext of that whole thing is what I've come to know in life is that everything is relative. Everything is relative. Everything is connected. But Mr. Hobby's ability, his compendium of knowledge inspired me, and that's 10th grade. Um, and I came here, as we all come here. We all come here with something, and the challenge is to remember what we come here to be, what we are, and we live in an establishment that seeks to separate us from who we are, you know. Uh, but I was very, very, stubborn in my, in the quest of separation. So, I was an artist, and you know, in terms of those men that spoke to me that weren't in my circle, that weren't immediate to me, there was Ernie Barnes, great artist, black artist, and you know his work from Good Times, football player, and with the Rams, and a very, very accomplished artist. So, um, he spoke to me, you know.
Okay, so I want to go back and touch on something that you mentioned because it's very interesting. You mentioned your high school teacher and you said he was a white man. And so that's very interesting because many times black men and black boys are not always receptive to information or guidance per se from a white man because of the cultural differences that we have. So if you could just touch on that just a little bit more about the influence and impact that this white man as your teacher in the 10th grade had on you, I'd like to hear more about that.
Um, well, here's the thing, because it's funny because there's this backdoor thing coming in that very much includes my mother. in a very ironic way. My mother was a dropout. She dropped out when she had me. My mother had me at 18, and so she never finished school. She was not a quote unquote educated person, because she didn't commiserate with school, so she never graduated and such. But and then coming from the South, and my mother had a a library, at home, and I would spend a lot of time in the house looking at uh, Encyclopedia Britannica. You know, I would look at all the periodicals that my mother had ordered for me. The Boy's Life, Sports Illustrated, highlights. So 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 the trick here is that this is a white man that I'm looking at, with information, but really, is it any different from all the information I'm getting? Now, mind you, Sports Illustrated, highlights, Boys Life, these are publications that are coming from the establishment, so it's no different. So, but I would also say that I was open, like I knew I knew the pulse of the nation, of the world. Vietnam was going on, civil rights was going on. So I did have a pulse on what was going on, and I got perspectives from many places in my life. There was summer times I would go to the gritty environment of Jamaica, Queens. So that was going on, and so you know those experiences came together to to make me someone who was cosmopolitan, universal, free thinking, and therefore free accepting. And as an artist, the artist benefit allowed any and everything to be fodder for my inspiration. Yeah.
So you mentioned that you didn't grow up with your biological father, but you were fortunate enough to have a good stepdad. Um, in having a stepdad, did he give you any guidance towards your female male relationships and marriage in particular? And how did not growing up with your biological dad affect you as a husband and as a partner in your relationships?
Ooh, that's a real deep one. And I just came to some insight about that only recently. And you know, both my mother and my father had strong personalities, and my mother is a whole lot. She's a whole lot to deal with, you know. And you know, I didn't have a relationship with my biological father, but I can't imagine my biological father being able to deal with my mother. I can't deal with that. But I did see my stepfather. When I think about it, I've never seen him really make executive decisions or I'm gonna say I never see him like really, for lack of a better, check my mother. Like I just never saw that. My mother was a whole lot to deal with, and so I never. Yeah, and I grew up with a lot of strong women. Like it's crazy we're talking about men, but the women have a lot to do with my psychogenesis. And I'm not any different than anybody else, whatever your environment is. So, but he never gave me anything formally to address my engagement with women. And so a lot of that I had to free flow. I had to get it as I go, as I went, as I traveled. I had to research. I had to look beyond, and that entailed me actually looking beyond myself to other men outside the family that I came in contact with. Whether it was at the job or whether it was in passing. And to model or to take what they were doing, how they were engaging with their wives or their girlfriends. You know,
Right.
yeah,
Were there men in your neighborhood, in your community, that didn't necessarily speak verbally to you to inspire you in any way, but men that you just observed and you learned either things that you did not want to do and become, or saw things that inspired you to become what you became?
yeah, absolutely, absolutely, yeah. I did a I did uh, a survey, and I even asked some people who go back, in the neighborhood, like how many households had men in them, whether they were straight up husbands or whether they were living, boyfriends. Like how many people in our village had men in them. Um, and so, I'm talking about 60s, 70s, of course. And um, there were men holding it down. And just by, virtue of being visible, in a family unit, coming out of the same house and going to the same house every day at the end of the day was big. That was major. And, you know, coming forward, I'm not sure that, even in that time, um, that I wasn't, I don't know, maybe slightly envious. I was, I was pretty functional as a young boy, as a teenager. Um, my particular, I would say, thirst or understanding of need for a father wasn't really that apparent to me. It had not come forward. It came to me late in life, like about 38, really, honestly. You know, but I had seen, I was getting the understanding that a father is so absolutely vital in a young black boy's life, or for any boy's life, but certainly, attitude of history that black people um, are faced with. It's so vital. I seen it with my nephew. I seen it with my stepson. And how his father would, make not uphold appointments. And at 38, it hit me in the head. You're like, wow, man. Like my father wasn't there to you know, help me with my girl problems. To teach me how to tie a tie. Um, but yeah, just seeing the fathers there, man. I mean, going off to work with that freaking, bag of lunch and coming back home when the sun goes down. You know, that was major stuff in
Right.
and of itself.
You are a father, is that correct?
I'm a father of four, yes.
Okay, a four. Okay, so how has these experiences affected you as a dad?
Mm. Well, I got a real good one, my brother. I had my I was married and I had my first son, but my son had to be like I would say maybe just a little under two one day, and I'm with his mother, and so I had two sons because she had one when I met her, but we're in the living room and we're tossing a little softball in the living room, you know, and we're tossing back, and this is like I'm looking at his face, and this is the greatest thing for him. This is the greatest thing for him. Like ain't nothing better than I'm just tossing this ball at my father, and in that moment, feeling his joy, I was him, but I was also my father. I was the father that I wanted to be, that I never had, And of course, I was myself. So I was like three places at one time, and I just swelled up, man. I just like, this is amazing, man. Like this is amazing. This is what I wanted to have. Like one of the best things in my life was fatherhood. That was the best things in my life was fatherhood, man.
Yeah, I say the same thing. I feel the exact same way. I love being a father to my three sons. Love it.
Yeah,
Best job
yeah.
ever.
Can't beat it, man.
So, did you play sports at all growing up? And if
I
you
did. I
did,
played a lot of
how,
sports. I
How
played.
how did how did how did being involved in sports affect the shaping of you becoming a man?
Ooh, in some ways, it's easy for us. Every generation is the best generation. We was tough back then today, but we would go out. We'd be out there playing this a pickup game of football. And we'd be out there straight up. In the neighborhood, across the street at the park, with full blown equipment on, shoulder pads, helmets on. Forearm protectors. We'd be out there doing it in the rain, in the mud, in the snow, you know, and we would be out on the court, 90 degrees, playing for hours, you know. And I played everything, football, baseball, basketball, I played tennis, well, I played tennis, and that was crazy because there was a lady that came, had to be like, I don't know, maybe I was 13 or 14, and her partner never showed up at the park, and she asked one of us on the court who wanted to play tennis. I raised my hand and I played tennis, and then who knows? I think I could have been a contender. The sports thing, like you had to bring it, and the importance of that is that you're as good as your competition. I had some good competition. I had to, you know, you playing in the hood, you playing sandlot pickup, but some of those guys in the hood are playing on the varsity high school team. Some of these guys are all city. You know, so yeah, you got sharpened by hanging out with them, competing against them. And if you were big, it's okay. You on the, I can't pick you. You're on the other side of the team. That's gonna make me better. There was some, yeah, there was some my contemporaries. Guys even older than me. Like I look up to them. Man. They were legends, man, and they grew
Right,
me up. They grew
right,
me up. You
right.
know.
In a conversation we had when we first met, you were telling me that you were a life coach. So, as a
Yes.
life coach, what are two things that you would say to young men who are growing up presently without their father in the home and without a real role model in their space? What would
Wow.
be the two things you
Well,
would give to them?
yeah. What I would say is that what's important is to I think the least wisdom that a child has to have is that they have to revere order. That's it. So I'm saying that to say that, and this goes into the issue of entitlement at this moment too, because somehow they got the idea that they are, you know, um, standing or sitting across parallel to the people that brought them here, you know, and you have to understand that there is no you unless there's mom and dad. So the reverence never stops. I'm 63. My mother's up in age now, of course, and we are hit at the point where I got to make an executive decision about her. Like, mom, you're doing this, we're doing this. Like there's this flip now. But I respect her. I do respect her. As my mother, she's always going to be my mother. And the second thing is that, and this is really the centerpiece of what I do as a life coach. It's so important. It's everything. Choices. It's about choices and values. And what we, as young black men, what we need to do is understand that everything we're doing is fueled by our choice, by our values. Every choice we're making is fueled by our values. In terms of mentorship, in terms of guidance, what should I do about this? Or where can, how do I understand this? How do I process this? You know, now more than ever, we're in the information age, and so much information is accessible. You know, for lack of a father, if that was the case, then I can look out in my neighborhood. Uh, there was some access to examples of fatherhood. But that doesn't end it here. Now we have, of course, we have the world, in the palm of our hand, literally in the palm of our hand, and there are influencers out there, and while that's the scope of influence is large, it's also more precarious than ever because everybody's on the tube thinking that they know something and that they can guide folks. So at the end of the day, so to bring my point forward, we have to pray and be mindful of discernment, who we're choosing to guide us. The men that speak to us are oftentimes immediate and accessible, but sometimes they are people in remote places on the globe, and we have to pray for discernment. There has to, and in that we have to cultivate ourselves spiritually, so that we can resonate with what is light. We have to recognize light. We have to be able to detect light, in a being. And so the two things that I would say to sum it up, Scott, are that, you have to have reverence. Like something has to be sacred. Something has to be sacred. Reverence is important. Revere your mother and father. Respect order. If you don't respect order, then you are promoting disorder and chaos. And and you have to be accountable to your choices. And in that, you have to check your values.
That's good stuff, man. Good stuff. So that would conclude the questions that I had about the men that spoke to you. And indeed, I can see that some positive men have spoken to you and has created a very strong brother for the day. That's good
Thank you,
stuff,
brother.
man.
Thank you. I
Good stuff.
appreciate that. I thank you.
All right, man. Well, I appreciate you taking the time out your busy day to speak to my audience, and I'll be looking forward to seeing you again, bro.
Brother Scott, thank you. And I want to commend you for the growth, the healing, and the inspiration, brother, that you are offering. And anyone who would receive that will be blessed. Continued blessings on your endeavors, brother. Thank you. Thank you for
Thank you very
having me.
much, man. Appreciate
Thank you.
that.
All right.
Have a good afternoon, man.
You as well.
All right.
Peace.
Peace. So, thank you again, ladies and gentlemen, for checking out this broadcast in the Lions Den. And remember, we are restoring kings and queens, one conversation at a time.